This is a drawing done from the live model here at my studio, School of Realist Art in the Kansas City area. This was a 40-minute pose and it was drawn from the live model. In this instance, I am using Marie's charcoal pencils. I'm also using General's charcoal in white. If you would like to see my review of Marie's charcoal pencils or my review of General's charcoal pencils, check the links in the description below. Since this is a 40-minute pose and not a long pose where I have 2 to 3 hours, I am starting directly with the charcoal and just sketching really, really lightly. This charcoal doesn't erase very easily, so that's why I want to make sure to use really light marks and not put pressure on the paper. If I press down with the charcoal, I'm going to make a little indentation into the paper where that charcoal can rest, and it's going to be very difficult for my eraser to get in there and get rid of it. So you can see I'm not holding the pencil near the tip like we would if we are writing a letter, but I'm actually holding it way at the end. Once I am happy with my sketched outlines, then I can use more pressure and I move my hand closer to the front of the pencil, and then I start making more specific curves and outlines. It's kind of interesting to notice where I have my hand positioned when I'm drawing, depending on what I'm doing. Sometimes I don't even realize it, but when I'm making lighter, more feathered marks, my hand is further away from the tip of the pencil. And when I'm being more specific, I'm making darker marks or little curves, then my hand is closer to the front of the pencil. So just notice that throughout the drawing process where I have my hand positioned. Something that I really felt like highlighting in this drawing were actually the contours. A lot of the time I want to focus on big shadows and make them really dark and atmospheric, but here I just really liked all the different varieties of curves that I was seeing in the areas where there's either a contour on the outside of the figure or where two areas of the figure are pressed up against each other. Just a note, notice that now that I'm doing more delicate shading, my hand has moved further away from the tip of the pencil and it's all the way back at the end of the pencil again. So instead of working evenly everywhere, I'm kind of going section by section. I'm putting a sharp outline on the curves that I find the most interesting, but I'm not treating them all the same. Some areas are getting a little bit darker mark than other areas, and I'm also going really slow and paying careful attention to what I see on the model. So just because I have already a contour sketched out, that doesn't mean that there's no more information for me. So I continue to look at the model so that I can get more specific and so that I can make corrections. If you look there on the left, you can see where I've added a mark because I am raising up the position of the forearm. Part of the reason that I'm working like this section by section instead of getting all the shadows on the entire form done and then all the lights and all the contours is because I have a limited amount of time. I feel like if I get a figure drawing and only a small portion of it is brought up to a finish, I would rather have that than to have a lot of drawing not finished. So if I have all of the drawing 25% done and a small section of it 100% done, I might like that than having 100% of the drawing 50% done. This is kind of a lot of number talk and math for a drawing video, but hopefully you get what I mean there. We have to make decisions when working from life about where we're going to focus and how much time we're going to put into things because the model's going to leave. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, or you know me at all, you know that I like to point out when I make mistakes and when I do things that I don't particularly like, and that's what you're about to see right here. I do feel like every now and then, it's just, well, more than every now and then, often it is difficult to draw a hand, especially at this scale. This hand is probably the size of my pinky nail. So getting lines in there to show the fingers is really challenging. That line thickness makes it difficult to even be accurate because that line thickness is such a big percentage of the size of the fingers anyway. So what happens here is I start to do the outlines. I feel like they create fingers that look like they're pointing the wrong way. So I erase those outlines and I revert to shading. I find this works a lot of the time because shading is not quite as specific as an outline. Like when we have an outline, sometimes we're wondering, does that outline represent the outside of the shape or is it along the inside of the shape? And that can make a really big proportion difference. So instead, I hint at where the beginnings of the fingers are, and then I shade them in to show that they're in shadow. I decided not to really add more information than this. In the toes, instead of drawing each individual toe, I'm indicating the separation of the big toe because that's usually a really big change and a really large notch or indentation that happens there. And then again, I'm just focusing on the shading to get a little bit of form. Since the hand and the foot are really not the subject of this drawing, in my opinion anyway, I start to circle back around toward the figure. Now, I also know here that I don't exactly have time to draw a portrait. And once again, it would be kind of silly to draw like a cartoonish portrait on top of this more realistically shaded figure, but I do want at least an indication that there is a head there. It can be kind of weird to have a head that has been chopped off at the neck, but I think having a little bit of the jaw and the back of the neck feels a little bit more relaxed than if the head was just chopped off. With much of the shading done, I'm going to be moving on to adding white. And I'm using a lot of the paper in this instance to represent where the light is hitting the form. So I'm not covering everything in the light side in this instance with white charcoal. I'm just using it to add the lightest lights. This is a lighter toned paper, and that's why I'm able to use the paper as the lights. When I use darker paper, I need to use white everywhere that light is hitting. I hope that you found some of the tips in this video useful. If you would like some full figure drawing tutorials and reference photos, check out patreon.com/School of Realist Art. If you would like a full figure drawing course, check out figuredrawingacademy.com. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.